Let's talk about grinding. This is something I really struggled with when I first started. First, I take a used 36 grit and I grind the bevels really deep, almost finishing deep, before I get started with a new 60 grit. This is a Cubitron 2. Also, don't forget your ear protection and eye protection. The first thing I want to talk about here is stance. This is a subject that no one really covered with me until my good friend Mike Bradshaw and Bill Burke kind of stepped in and said, hey, you stand too far from the grinder. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because if you stand farther from the grinder, you don't have the leverage on the knife. When you don't have the leverage on the knife, you can get a lot of chatter and shaking in your grinds. Here I'm showing you just one clean pass, after which I've cooled the blade in water. One of the things I really struggled with when I first started grinding was faceting, the appearance of facets on the blade from changing angles. And I'm going to show you in a minute here how to not do that. However, here you just see me taking a few clean passes on each side to just really start to grind those bevels in. I used to grind everything at 36 grit, but it takes so long to get the scratches out, and it's really not that much slower to grind with a 50 or 60 grit belt, but it does save you time trying to get the deep scratches out of your bevel. Here I'm going to show you how to not get the facets, or at least how to remove them. So you can see when you're looking down at the blade, there's a shadow between the belt and the blade. That changes as you rock the blade forward or backward against the belt. In order to keep from creating facets, keep that shadow the same and then grind all the way down to that front steel so there's no shadow. In this shot, you can see me taking Mastersmith Bill Burke's advice and using my quote-unquote God-given table rest of a belly as support for my arms to keep everything stable as I run the knife across the belt. This stability, along with keeping the blade flat and consistently angled, is the key to a clean and consistent, facet-free bevel grind. I've cut out about 30 seconds of grinding here because I wanted to show you in mostly real time that it doesn't take long to grind a pretty clean bevel. Here I'm throwing on a new 3M Cubitron 2 in 120 grit, and we're going to walk that bevel up to 120 grit. This is a pre-heat treat grind. I don't usually go much higher than 120 grit before heat treat. I repeat the exact same process with this 120 grit belt on the bevels, and then I'm going to show you something I do quite a bit differently than a lot of makers. In total, repeating with 120 grit takes just a few minutes. It shouldn't take you a very long time to grind a blade bevel. It's not a complicated task. It will take you much longer to change out a blade in and out of a beveling fixture, just changing the blade in and out, than it will to completely grind your freehand bevels. All right, here I'm going to show you the bevels I've put in, and then I'm going to show you where I depart from a lot of makers. These lines I'm showing you, they're pretty clean, but I hate them. I don't really like crisp, clean lines on a knife, especially not a Damascus knife, which this is, a canister Damascus knife. So I'm throwing it in the etch off camera there. This etched less than a minute, and you can see already that the bevel and the Damascus pattern somewhat compete against each other for attention, and I don't love that. On most of my Damascus blades, I take the rotary platen, which is what you see me installing here, with the same 120 grit Cubitron 2 belt, and I grind off those clean lines. I don't like them, so they gotta go. The rotary platen really is a great tool for this, as well as if you have any faceting that you were unable to get out on the flat platen at this point. For those of you that don't know what a rotary platen does, it has a rubber belt, and it has usually 2 or 3 different sides to the platen. The side I'm using has a hard platen behind the rubber belt. And what that does is allows the belt to have some give, a very slight amount of give, but enough to convex the edge just a hair, and it'll remove those grind lines very easily, and also remove any faceting that you have in the blade to this point very easily. It's an excellent tool for beginners and pros alike. It is worth every penny that you will spend on it. I think the cheapest one at the time of the making of this video was somewhere around $450. And look, guys, I understand that is an expensive tool, especially for a beginning knife maker. But if you're selling your knives at all, hopefully you're reinvesting some of that money back into your business and back into your craft. And this is an excellent tool. I cannot recommend it highly enough. In fact, when I first started out, this was the one tool that a bunch of guys in my local guild said, hey, you need to buy this tool. And there's not been one time that I regretted listening to them on that. So take my word for it or don't. But if you have a local fellow maker that has one of these, try and get into their shop and use this once or twice, and you will see the value of it. But hey, I've talked long enough, so let me finish up these grinds, dunk this knife in the etch, and I'll show you why I like a nice clean blended look on Damascus blades rather than those crisp, clean grind lines that we often see on so many knives. Here you go. After heat treat, I will repeat this process until I've got the thickness behind the edge I want and all the decarb is off the blade as I etch it from grit to grit. But if you made it this long, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time in the Iron Big Forge. Cheers.